In 1946, $1 was not just $1. In Japan, $1 could feel like a tiny piece of another world, a world with military stores, imported goods, stable pay, and food that was easier to find. But for ordinary Japanese families, money did not feel stable at all. The war was over, but survival was not. Tokyo was scarred by firebombing. Osaka, Nagoya, Yokohama, Kobe. Many cities had been damaged or devastated. Millions of people were trying to rebuild their lives in a country that had lost the war, lost its empire, and was now under Allied occupation. The emperor was still there, but Japan was being remade under the authority of General Douglas MacArthur and the supreme commander for the Allied powers. And somewhere inside this broken economy, we are going to ask a simple question. What could $1 buy in Japan in 1946? Not because Japanese people walked around spending dollars. Most did not. The U.S., too. Dollar did exist in this period, but ordinary Japanese people used yen. Dollars were mostly connected to occupation forces, foreign personnel, and official channels. So we are using $1 as a measuring stick, a way to compare purchasing power, wages, food, and daily survival. Because $1 in the right historical moment can tell us more than an exchange rate. It can tell us whether someone ate breakfast, whether a worker could ride across town, whether a family could stretch one day into the next, and whether money meant comfort, survival, or almost nothing at all. Picture Japan in 1946. The fighting has stopped. The surrender has happened. The American occupation has begun. But peace does not immediately look like peace. In the cities, whole neighborhoods are gone. Many people live in temporary shelters, damaged homes, or crowded rooms with relatives. Factories have been bombed. Jobs are uncertain. Soldiers and civilians are returning from former Japanese territories across Asia, adding pressure to a country already short on food and housing. The empire that once promised glory has collapsed into ration lines. For ordinary people, the biggest question is not politics. It is not ideology. It is food. Rice is the emotional center of the Japanese diet, but rice is hard to get. Official rations exist, but they are often not enough. Distribution is uneven. Farmers may be required to deliver rice to the state, but many are reluctant to give up food when inflation makes official prices feel unfair. So a second economy grows. The black market. In official life, there are ration cards, rules, controlled prices, and government distribution. In real life, people often need to trade clothes, family heirlooms, tools, or anything valuable for food. A city office worker might ride into the countryside with a kimono or a piece of furniture, hoping to exchange it for rice or sweet potatoes. A mother might stretch barley, millet, or potatoes into meals that used to contain more rice. A child might remember the taste of hunger more clearly than the taste of dinner. This is the world our dollar is entering. Not a normal economy, a survival economy. The official currency was the Japanese yen. People used coins and paper notes, but money itself was losing trust. During and after the war, Japan experienced severe inflation. Prices rose quickly and savings lost value. A family that had money in the bank before the war could find that money far less useful after the war. But yen were only part of the story. Post-war Japan had several overlapping systems of value. First, there was official money, yen used for wages, controlled prices, tickets, basic purchases, and government transactions. Second, there was rationing, food distributed through official channels, often at controlled prices, but frequently in quantities that were too small or unreliable. Third, there was barter, trading clothing, household objects, tools, or jewelry for food. Fourth, there was the black market, illegal or semi-tolerated markets where food and goods were available, but at much higher prices than official rates. For a hungry person, the black market could feel immoral, dangerous, necessary, and unavoidable all at once. And for American occupation personnel, dollars had a different kind of power. An American soldier paid in dollars came from a much richer economy. Even if he did not simply walk into a Japanese store and spend dollars like yen, his access to military supplies, occupation currency systems, and exchange channels placed him in a very different world from the average Japanese worker. So when we ask what $1 could buy, we have to be careful. We are not asking, what did Japanese people buy with dollar bills? We are asking, what did $1 worth of value mean inside post-war Japan? Here is where history gets tricky. By 1949, the occupation authorities fixed the exchange rate at 360 yen to $1. That number became famous in Japan's post-war economic history. But our story is set earlier, in 1946 and 1947, when prices were unstable, inflation was severe, and official values did not always match street reality. So if we simply say $1 equals this many yen, we risk making the past look cleaner than it really was. To keep this honest, we are not pretending there is one perfect conversion. Instead, we will compare $1 through the things that mattered most: food, wages, and survival. We will look at three lenses. First, the official money lens. What might $1 represent if converted into yen through later official exchange logic? Second, the food lens. How much rice, grain, or basic food could that value buy, especially when official rations and black market prices were completely different worlds? Third, the labor lens. How long would an ordinary person need to work to earn something like that value? And the answer changes depending on who you are. For an American, $1 might be small. For a Japanese worker, it might be meaningful. For a hungry family, its value depended less on arithmetic and more on whether food was actually available. Food is the most important category. In post-war Japan, $1 worth of value could potentially buy a meaningful amount of staple food. But the amount depended heavily on whether you were buying through official channels, informal exchange, or the black market. Officially, rationed rice and grain were supposed to be cheaper, but official rations were often insufficient. Having the official price did not guarantee you could actually get enough food. On the black market, food existed more reliably, but prices were much higher. So with $1 worth of value, a person might be able to buy enough basic food for a day, maybe more if they were careful and had access to cheaper sources. Think rice, barley, sweet potatoes, miso, vegetables, or a small amount of fish. But this would not feel like abundance. This would not be sushi, beef, restaurant meals, and dessert. This would be survival food, a bowl of rice if you could get rice, sweet potatoes to fill the stomach, pickled vegetables, maybe miso soup, maybe a tiny amount of protein. The question was not, can I eat well? The question was, can I get enough calories to keep going? For drinking, water was the basic answer. Tea was common in Japanese life, but quality and availability varied. A household might drink tea when it could, but in a time of shortage, the idea of spending precious money on drinks for pleasure would have felt secondary. Alcohol existed, of course. Sake and other drinks were part of Japanese culture. But in the immediate post-war years, alcohol was not where a struggling family would put its money first. For $1 worth of value, someone might afford tea or a modest drink depending on place and market conditions. But for the average person trying to survive, the real drink was water, and the real priority was food. Transportation in Japan still functioned, but the system was worn down. Trains and streetcars were crowded. Equipment was damaged. Fuel and maintenance were difficult. People traveled for work, food, and family survival. Could $1 worth of value pay for transportation? Probably yes for local trips. It could cover multiple short tram or train rides depending on the year, location, and fare structure. But travel was not just about fare, it was about crowding, delays, exhaustion, and purpose. Many people were not traveling for entertainment, they were traveling to find food. A city resident might take a train toward rural areas to trade belongings for rice or vegetables. That journey could cost money, time, and dignity. A dollar might move you across town, but it could not rebuild the transportation system, and it could not make the journey easy. Housing is harder to compare. In 1946 Japan, the issue was not just rent, it was physical destruction. Many homes had been damaged or destroyed. Cities faced severe housing shortages. Families doubled up. People lived in makeshift structures, barracks, or cramped rooms. Could $1 pay rent? Not meaningfully in the way modern Americans think about rent. It might help with lodging for a short time in some low-cost setting or contribute to a shared room, but housing was shaped by scarcity, family networks, government policy, and damage from war. For many people, the problem was not, can I afford a nice apartment? It was, is there a roof at all? A dollar might help you survive the day. It would not solve housing. Clothing had value, sometimes more than money. In post-war Japan, good clothing could become a survival asset. A kimono, a coat, or fabric could be traded for food. Could $1 buy clothing? Possibly small items, repairs, used clothing, sandals, or basic fabric, depending on the market. But good clothing remained expensive and valuable. For a poor family, clothing was not fashion. It was warmth. It was trade value. It was dignity. Selling or trading clothing for food meant giving up part of your future comfort to survive the present. That is one of the emotional truths of this period. Sometimes the most important money in the house was not in a wallet. It was hanging in a closet. Entertainment did not disappear after the war. People still needed escape. Movies, newspapers, theater, music, festivals, and small pleasures mattered deeply in a damaged society. In fact, entertainment could become more powerful because daily life was so hard. Could $1 buy entertainment? In many cases, yes. It could likely cover a modest movie ticket, printed material, or small local amusements depending on the time and place. But again, the emotional meaning changes by class. For someone with stable work, spending money on a movie might be a brief return to normal life. For a hungry worker, it might feel irresponsible. For a child, a small treat could become a lifelong memory. In a survival economy, entertainment is not just fun. It is proof that life is more than hunger. Household goods mattered enormously. Soap, charcoal, candles, lamp oil, cooking fuel, needles, repairs, simple tools. Could $1 buy some of these? Yes, possibly. A person might buy basic household goods, fuel or small supplies. But shortages could make ordinary objects difficult to find or expensive. Soap mattered. Fuel mattered. A pot mattered. A needle mattered. Post-war poverty often appears in big images, ruins, crowds, ration lines. But real poverty is also tiny. A mother saving scraps, a worker repairing sandals, a family using less fuel, a child wearing patched clothes. A dollar could help with those small needs, but it could not remove the uncertainty. There were many things $1 could not buy. It could not buy land. It could not buy a secure home. It could not buy high-quality clothing for a whole family. It could not buy livestock. It could not buy medical security. It could not easily buy education, status, or protection from inflation. It could not buy the lost years of war, and it could not erase class difference. That is important because $1 can look powerful in a poor economy, but poverty is not solved one purchase at a time. A dollar might feed you today. It would not guarantee tomorrow. Now let's compare $1 to labor. This is the most human way to understand money. For a factory worker or day laborer, $1 worth of value might represent a serious amount of work. perhaps many hours, or around a day's value depending on the wage, location, and how we convert the dollar. For a peasant farmer, the comparison is different. Farmers might not think in daily cash wages. Their wealth could be in land access, harvests, family labor, rice obligations, taxes, and what they could keep or sell. For them, $1 worth of value might mean food security, a better trade, or a small but important cash advantage. For a demobilized soldier or low-paid servant, $1 could feel significant. Many returned soldiers came home to uncertain work, food shortages, and a society that had little ability to absorb them comfortably. For a merchant, artisan, or black market trader, the story changes. A person with goods, access, connections, or risk tolerance could earn much more than ordinary workers. In a shortage economy, the person who has food, fuel, or cigarettes may have more power than the person with a formal job. And for elites, landlords, wealthy families, high officials, or people with access to occupation networks, $1 might mean very little. For a worker, $1 worth of value might mean hours of labor. For a peasant, it might mean food security. For an elite, it might mean almost nothing. That is what money does in unequal societies. The numbers are the same. The feeling is completely different. Let's try to survive one day in Tokyo in 1946 with exactly $1 worth of value. You wake up in a cramped room. Maybe your family is sharing space with relatives. Maybe part of the neighborhood is still burned out. The air smells like damp wood, smoke, and cooking fuel. You do not start the day by choosing between breakfast options. You start by checking what is left. Breakfast is simple. Maybe barley mixed with rice if you are lucky, or sweet potatoes, or a thin soup. You spend only a small part of your value here because you already know the day is long. You need to travel. Maybe you're going to work. Maybe you're going to search for food. A local train or streetcar may be possible, but it is crowded. You hold your bag tightly. Everyone else is tired too. Your dollar value can probably cover the fare, but the fare is not the real cost. The real cost is energy, time, uncertainty. You do not buy a big meal. You buy something filling. Rice if available, noodles if affordable, sweet potatoes if that is what the market offers, maybe a little miso, maybe vegetables. If you are forced into the black market, your money drains faster. The official price says one thing, the street says another. You consider a small household purchase, soap, fuel, a repair. Maybe you do not buy it. Maybe you decide food matters more. That is the daily math of poverty, not what do I want, but what can I delay. You try to end the day with enough food to sleep, a thin meal, warm if possible, filling if possible, nutritious only if you are lucky. At the end of the day, could you survive? Yes, as a single adult, $1 worth of value could probably help you survive one day, especially if you were careful and had access to food. Could you live comfortably? No. Could it support a family? Not comfortably and not reliably. Would it make you rich? No, but in the hands of someone with access to dollars, goods, or exchange advantages, it could make you far more secure than many people around you. So the answer is complicated. $1 could buy survival, but it could not buy stability. Now imagine 5 people looking at the same $1 value. A poor mother sees food. She sees breakfast. She sees one more day where her children might not go to bed hungry. An ordinary worker sees labor. He thinks about how long he had to stand, carry, build, repair, or commute to earn that much value. A farmer sees exchange. Maybe money matters, but rice matters more. If inflation is rising, food in hand may feel safer than paper yen. A merchant sees opportunity. In a shortage economy, the person who can move goods can turn scarcity into profit. A soldier, especially an American occupation soldier, sees something completely different. To him, $1 may be small, ordinary, forgettable. But in the economy around him, that same dollar connects to a world of power. And an elite sees almost nothing. That is the emotional contrast. Money is never just math. Money is position. Who has access? Who gets paid in stable currency? Who owns food? Who has to sell family belongings? Who can wait? Who is desperate today? In post-war Japan, that gap could be brutal. One of the most surprising things about post-war Japan is that official prices and real prices could feel like two different countries. On paper, a rationed amount of rice or food might have a controlled price, but on the black market, the same kind of food could cost many times more. That meant the official economy told people, this is what life should cost. The black market told them, this is what survival actually costs. And millions of people live between those two numbers. That is a powerful detail because it shows why historical prices can be misleading. A cheap official price does not help if the shelf is empty. A ration card does not feed you if the ration is late, small, or unavailable. In a crisis, the real price of food is not just money, it is waiting. It is risk. It is shame. It is what you are willing to trade. For a modern American viewer, $1 is almost invisible. It might not cover a coffee. It will not cover a gallon of gas. It will not buy a fast food meal. It will not pay rent for even an hour in most cities. But in 1946 Japan, $1 worth of value could carry the weight of survival. Not because life was better, but because people had less cash, fewer goods, and fewer choices. That is the key difference. Today, Americans often think of money through convenience. Groceries, rent, gas, streaming, coffee, commute, delivery fees. Post-war Japanese families thought about money through survival, rice, fuel, shelter, clothing, and whether tomorrow would be worse. What changed is not just the price. It is the entire relationship between work, money, and survival. In modern America, a low wage can still mean stress and insecurity. But in post-war Japan, the line between enough and not enough could be painfully thin. A dollar was not powerful because it bought luxury. It was powerful because ordinary life had been stripped down to essentials. So what could $1 buy in Japan in 1946? It could probably help buy basic food for a day. It could help pay for local transportation. It could buy small household necessities. It might buy a little entertainment if you were lucky enough to spend money on pleasure. But it could not buy secure housing. It could not buy comfort for a family. It could not protect you from inflation. It could not erase the destruction of war. And it meant completely different things depending on who held it. For an American occupation soldier, $1 could feel small. For a Japanese worker, it could represent serious labor. For a hungry family, it could mean one more day of food. For a merchant with access to goods, it could be opportunity. For the poor, it could be survival. That is why this question matters. We are not just converting dollars into yen. We are converting money into human experience. Because $1 does not just tell us what things cost. It tells us what life felt like. Where should we take $1 next? Should we spend $1 in ancient China, medieval England, the Roman Empire, or Japan during the samurai era? Tell me the country and year in the comments, and we'll see what $1 could really buy.